just to get it to work. So yeah.
That's fine. I think that's going to be the phrase of the year. Apologies, I'm having a terrible time getting this thing to work. Or you're on mute. Or are you on mute? Unmute yourself. Those are gonna those phrases have become far more common. Oh, we're streaming live on YouTube now.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor, I thought I'd get it going in case there's any teething problems. So I had a few minutes to resolve them, but fortunately it's working perfectly well, it appears.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah.
No, I can't hear you, whoever that was.
Dana.
Yeah, unfortunately, sorry.
Lisa, is Georgina joining us as well?
She is. She sent me an email. Oh, there you go. She's in.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
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 How are you all doing?
Fine, thank you.
Very good. Very good. So have we got Alex Ellis? Alex, are you here?
Yes, Councillor, I'm here.
Hi. So just so I'm aware, is this a panel? So only the people who are speaking are visible on Zoom?
Correct, much like the youth zone ones we did. So all the attendees' cameras are off. I'm just explaining that in one of the comments now. All the attendees' cameras are off. They can make comments on Q&A or in the comment box. And if later on we want to unmute them, we can unmute them. If they want to speak, if they request that, we can do that. Very much the same as the youth zone.
Okay, and then we're streaming this live to YouTube, yeah?
Yep, it's on there now.
Okay, all right, it's on now.
Underway on YouTube.
Okay, all right. If you're listening, ignore that. This is all. Good. Okay. We're waiting for Steve from Vita Mines. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Kelly?
I think so. Kelly, unfortunately, has stated she can't make it after all, Councillor. So that's the only one.
Okay. And we've got Lisa, and we've got Georgina, and Lynn. We've got is here, and Councillor Gordon. What is the purpose of you being here?
What just in general, or or specific? No, so I chair the Health Partnership Board here in Basildon. So yes, and also I'm the borough's mental health champion. So given that I am the mental health champion for Basildon, I thought it'd be pertinent I'm on here talking about mental health.
It would make sense, wouldn't it? Joined up government there. Very good. Georgina, do you have a camera?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah, is it not on?
No, it's not. No.
How do I?
If you move your cursor, Georgina, down to the left, bottom left of the screen, there's a little.
That's it.
Hi.
Hiya.
Hi, Georgina. Hi. Give it a couple of minutes and then.
Okay.
Alfie, are you able to contact Stephen? Or
yeah, we've just got Stephen joined us, so he's
wonderful.
You go, Steve Patterson's just joined. So there we go.
Great.
Hi, Steve. Can you hear us?
I can indeed. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Oh, good.
Brilliant. Have you guys done any of these with other councils? No,
this is the first for me.
Fair.
Yeah, first for me too.
Okay, very good. No pressure.
Not much.
What about you, Alfred? Are the CCG doing?
So we've done it with Basildon, but that was pre-COVID, and that was in terms of a Q&A panelist session. But post-COVID, we haven't had the pleasure of doing a virtual one.
Okay.
So this is the first virtual one.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Well, by my watch, it's just turned 6 o'clock. So if we kick off, and I'll begin by welcoming everybody to our virtual discussion tonight on mental health. And I want to say, by way of introduction, firstly, my name is Councillor Gavin Callaghan. I'm the leader of Basildon Council and the councillor for Pitsea North West here in the Basildon Borough. And I understand from the conversations that I've held since the start of the pandemic, and it feels in some cases like yesterday and in other cases like 5 years ago that this pandemic started. But over the course of the last 9 months, I've held a number of Facebook Live sessions that have reached around 500,000 people in terms of their views. And lots of the feedback that I have been getting and receiving from the public has been to do with mental health and to do with how we can cope and how we can improve our mental health. And I have to say it's positive and negative. Lots of people who have also felt that the kind of slowing down in their pace of life, non-commuting on the trains and all the rest of it has helped their mental health, but also those people we know who have struggled as well. And it has affected all age groups and all age ranges across all 5 towns of our borough. So I wanted this evening to bring together clinicians and voluntary groups and councillors and officers from the council to talk about various things that we can do as we lead up to the Christmas period to help. And it's pertinent that this discussion falls tonight on the day that we have found out our tiering system and that we will be in tier 2 as a borough, and also that we're not out of the woods yet. And the government, I think, have been clear that the restrictions that we have been living under since the 23rd of March are likely to continue in some form or another through to the end of March next year. So a full 12 months of our lives will have been taken up with these restrictions in some form or another. And that's important for people to think through and to understand. So tonight I'm joined on this panel tonight by Councillor Andrew Gordon. Andrew is the chair of the Basildon Health and Wellbeing Partnership and is also the vice chair of the Housing and Communities Committee on Basildon Council. From Alfred from the Basildon and Brentwood CCG, who is the head of mental health and LD commissioning. We have Lynn from ePut, which is a crisis care team that has been launched since earlier this year, and we'll speak more about that in a moment. Steve from Beta Minds, providing a range of healthcare support in and around mental health for depression, anxiety, OCD and other forms. And we have Lisa and Georgina from Motivated Minds, who are also here. Grant Taylor is the council's head of culture and health, and he will be able to advise tonight on what the council is also looking at in this field. And I want this to be an opportunity for people to ask questions, have their questions answered. It's a very informal discussion. Please use this as an opportunity to get your messages across. And I'm very grateful to people who have been sending their lists of questions in to me over the course of the last couple of weeks or so, and grateful that we have 5 people here who are listening. Please feel free to use the chat function as we go, and I know that this is being streamed live onto the council's YouTube channel. If you are watching this on catch up later on, such as the modern world, feel free to send in emails and we will get answers to the questions for you. So I want to kick off with some questions, dive straight in if we can. And we've heard, haven't we, a lot about the impact of coronavirus on mental health during this time. And if I can start with you, Councillor Gordon, from your perspective, what has your experience been of the lockdown and of the impact on mental health of your constituents and also people you've worked with?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Callaghan, for that. I think the impact of lockdown has been quite significant, mainly because it's hit at what keeps us mentally well. Often what keeps us mentally well are the personal connections we make, are the communities we engage with, you know, the friends that we see. Those are things that keep us mentally well. And we take away those for obviously valid reasons. It has a significant impact. You know, we can't just meet up with our mate for a coffee to de-stress. We can't, you know, pop to the gym. You know, things like that are gone. Further to that, also stresses in terms of employment. You know, lots of people are losing their jobs, and they're worried about how they're going to pay the bills. They're worried about how they're going to support their families. So I think though those two things combined have really had a massive impact on people's mental health, in a negative way. You know, some people who have never, you know, never been without work before are finding themselves not being able to go to work, and that's been quite significant. You know, for some people, there's been a positive benefit in terms of not having to commute into offices in London. You know, being able to work from the comfort of their home. That's been beneficial for some people. But I think overall, people have been struggling, and loneliness and social isolation have been big contributors towards that. You know, I've had constituents approaching me expressing that and wondering, well, what do I do? What do I do with that feeling of loneliness? The community hub has been great in terms of some of the interventions there, and some of those soft, light touch social and community interventions that we're really privileged to have in our borough have been effective, but we've still got a long way to go, and there's still people out there who are struggling. So I won't speak for too long because I'm sure there's other people who have similar things they want to add, but yeah.
And I think that's a really important point. We've seen that right across the council. There is a new demographic of people talking to the council now who are needing to access public services, people who never believed before, as you say, that they would ever need help and support when it comes to things like universal credit or self-employed support as well. So that as well has taken its toll. Alfred, if I can come to you and talk about from the CCG's perspective, in response to the pandemic, has the CCG done anything differently? How are you supporting your GPs to see more of the signs that people are struggling with their mental health, and what is in place to help both GPs and the clinicians, but also their patients as well?
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Callahan. So in terms of mental health and the issues apparent in response to the pandemic, so prior to the pandemic, access to mental health support in terms of has been an issue of regular focus within the board and the wider CCG as an organization. We've had numerous conversations in terms of obviously how we support the local population in accessing mental health with the pandemic, and in terms of the issues that impact on the population at large, the impact of social isolation, people not being able to access day-to-day activities. We know that has had a massive impact on people's mental health and well-being. From a national perspective, we understand that we are likely to see a surge of over 20% increase in emotional and well-being issue. As a CCG, we've been working with our various providers in terms of supporting them around the responsiveness to our local population's mental health. So we've been working with our practices and our GPs via the primary care network in terms of supporting them in mobilizing and looking at our transformation of mental health. So one of the new things we're working around is the integrated primary community care, that is having a mental health practitioner and psychological well-being practitioners sitting in the front door at the GP practices, just in terms of being cautious. So this is at an infancy. We've had numerous meetings. We're looking at rolling it out by the end of December in terms of in one of the PCNs, which is in West Basildon, which is a consortium of a couple of practices together. We've also worked with Motivated Mind that we co-fund with the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, and also in terms of with Essex County Council and Public Health in terms of looking at how Motivated Mind are responsive in terms of doing the welfare checks and the welfare calls in supporting people. So we're working with services in a more responsive manner. Vital Minds are here, so Steve will talk about what they've been doing in terms of looking at supporting people with mild to moderate mental health, anxiety and depression, because we know that's going to be one of the major issues in terms of with people due to the social isolation. Lynn will talk about the crisis service, which was launched just at the peak of COVID, and the 111/2 as well. So as a CCG, we've committed some resources in terms of supporting mental health. And we know from a national picture, there's a mental health investment standard. And in terms of an outturn, we're looking at investing at least about 39.76 million in mental health in Basildon and Brentwood as a whole.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's very good to hear. I'm sure I will be coming back to you to find out exactly how much of that 39.7 million is coming into Basildon at some point, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Lynn, let me come to you if I can. Can you just explain a bit more about your service and about how people can access it and your experiences really since the start of the pandemic and what you're seeing?
Okay, so we launched on the 1st of April of this year a new service, which is our Crisis 24/7 service, and the service is accessed by dialing 111. There are a list of options when you dial 111, as most of us would know, and option 2 is now for mental health. So if you choose option 2, you will come through to our contact centre, who would screen the call, and they would, if it's a crisis call, put it through to our team, who would pick up that call and deal with the caller. So who can use 111 option 2? Absolutely anyone is the answer to that. So it might be a person seeking help for themselves. It could be a carer, friend, relative, neighbour, whoever, who's concerned about someone and wants some advice about what to do about that. Or it can be a professional, like a GP or a paramedic, police. They're probably unlikely to call 111 option 2. They have got their own private numbers that they can come through to the team on, but we can offer advice to clinicians as well, outside of sort of the mental health service, our ePut service. So we offer an assessment of any person that requires an assessment, and COVID has brought some good things in that the technology that we were offered was improved at very quick notice. We were able to conduct video assessments with people, which wasn't in our original plan, so that has benefited us. We can conduct an assessment over the telephone, or a video assessment, or we can go out and conduct a face-to-face assessment using PPE if necessary. Because of COVID, that's reduced slightly in what the original plan was, because that's the guidance now, that it's really only when required that we do a face-to-face assessment, but we do have the capability of doing that, and we do go out and do that if necessary. What we've seen is that we've been really busy. And it's difficult to compare it to what might have been last year, because this is a brand new service. So I can't say whether we've got more, higher volume of calls than we did last year, because we didn't have this service. It's a 24/7, 365 days a year service. So that it's an enhancement on what we had before, and we didn't have the ability for people to self-refer into our services previously. So it's very different. So it's difficult for me to compare. But similar to what people have said, we are seeing people with new presentations, people finding COVID stressful. We've had people feeling quite anxious, isolated. So some of those sorts of presentations have come forward, plus, people as well, just adjusting to a very different life and struggling with that. So some of those things have come forward, plus, our sort of usual business that we would see in mental health that maybe isn't so COVID related. as well.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. And I particularly like that point about technology. I think that for many people delivering services in the public sector, we probably did about 5 years worth of technological advancement in 5 days. Which, you know, is a godsend really, and a good thing to come out of COVID. So I know from our point of view at the council, all of a sudden every desk was empty and we were signing off, you know, because it came right at the end of the financial year, the entire council's finances remotely in 32 different locations in people's homes. So it was a real eye-opener as to how things could be done differently, and as you say, could be a positive as well. Steve, let me come to you now as well and talk about Vitaminds and talk about what you're doing and how people can refer to you guys and get the help that they need. How have you found the pandemic?
Absolutely. Changeable, I think, would be the word I would use about how we've seen the pandemic. In the early days, the move to remote work was adopted very, very swiftly. And we found that we became very popular in the first few weeks because we were someone to talk to at the end of the telephone or the end of a Teams call. And people tended to value their appointments. The DNA rates went down, the cancellation rates went down, and we became a good source of communication for people, I guess. I think further into the lockdown the first time round, things started to change and we saw referral rates actually dry up. And I think the most obvious reason for that was that people weren't able to go to see the GPs and the GPs weren't able to signpost to us. So we did see a lull of activity sort of towards the front end of the lockdown and towards the mid part. So the activity has picked up subsequent to that, but you know, I would encourage the good folk of Basildon to use it. Waiting times are short now. We see someone for an assessment within a fortnight, and we'll have them into treatment within a fortnight thereafter as well. So there should be no excuse really for picking up the Vitaminds offer.
I'm tempted as well, just for my own mental health as we go now, to ask you with an accent like that who you support, but it could determine one way or the other.
Well, say it's Newcastle. That's been really poor during lockdown as well. That doesn't offer me any form of solace whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, as a Sunderland fan, it's nice to have you here. Thanks very much for being here. Let's turn to Motivated Minds, shall we? And let's not talk about the North East football rivalries. And let's talk about what you guys do, because you've been such a huge help to the council and the work that you're doing. So, Lisa, let's come to you first, and then to Georgina. Let's talk about what you're doing and how people can come to you. What's the best way to get people to refer themselves to the services that you're providing?
Well, it's been a really challenging year for everyone, isn't it? So the way in which we have to move our services around this year has been quite vast, really. Ultimately, we're situated in Eastgate Shopping Centre. We actually moved premises in July, which was not the best time to be moving offices, as I'm sure you can appreciate. We're now situated right next door to Asda, so we've got a nice big space there. So it's a really spacious hub, which means that once we move into the second tier, we've obviously got the space to be able to see people face to face where needed. We are open for crisis at the moment, so we're open 10 till 4 Monday to Saturday, and then 11 till 4 on a Sunday. What that actually means is really, if people need someone to come and talk to, they can come and see us. We're also operating a food bank at the moment. There are already existing food banks in Basildon, but like you said earlier, people are struggling financially, and especially with lockdown and the isolation, there's lots of people that don't know how to do internet shopping, people that are, you know, we're working with people that are disabled, that don't know how to get out, can't get out of the house, in the normal channels. And we found that there was a gap where people were then being able to get the support they needed. So we were doing our best to fill that gap with our amazing volunteers. So obviously people can access our food bank 7 days a week and get an emergency food package if they need it. But ultimately we're kind of working with people. We've got some face-to-face groups that are running on a limited basis for sort of more high-level need. We have a counselling service which Georgina will talk to you about in a moment. We've had to expand. Obviously, we've got volunteers now supporting us to meet the need, because we're not dependent on the doctors or GPs. People can just walk in, people can pick up the phone, people can refer on our website, and we turn it around as quick as we can to see people. We've actually been doing some online anxiety training, which went quite well. We've got some self-help guides as well on our website that we've been putting up. We've done one recently about panic attacks, because we're finding that there's an increase in the amount of people having panic attacks recently, which is very natural considering we are in this kind of mass state of panic at the moment. We don't know what's going on. Our anxiety levels have been raised. So yes, we're doing some self-help guides that we're putting out on a closed Facebook group. So if anybody needs and wants some support, but doesn't feel like they need it in a high level, like they might not need counselling, but they want to just be in an environment where they can get some advice. We're actually doing something called the Lockdown Chronicles at the moment. So every morning we're posting some form of self-care or self-help in our closed Facebook group, just to keep people well. I think we just need to remind people of the more natural ways that we can manage our well-being, which is obviously, like you said, everything's been taken away from people. So the things that we would normally do to stay well have been taken away. And there's a coronavirus wellness journal as well that's available on our website. So people go to the website and they go to resources. There's a youth one for children, to keep children. We want to teach children how to look after their well-being. We think that's really important, and motivated minds, that people manage that themselves and they take ownership of that. We see that very much as, by empowering people to look after their own well-being, then they'll have those skills for life. So please, if anybody wants to go and take a look at the well-being journal, just to read up on what anxiety and stress is, it might be something that hasn't affected you ever before, or it might have been work-related stress that's very different to a home-related stress. Not being able to relax at home is a huge problem. So yeah, ultimately, pop to the hub. We're there. You can talk to somebody. If you're in crisis, we are someone that can help as well. So one of the things that we do is refer to the service, the 111 service. If somebody was to come in, we can actually support people to make that call, because that can actually be quite daunting to pick up the phone and do that yourself. So if you find yourself at a loose end, you don't know what to do, you can't cope, come and see us. Our staff and volunteers will talk you through that process. And really, ultimately, just kind of try and pull all these services together and give people that link to something that could help them. So yeah, that's kind of, there's a lot going on really at the hub, and I think we're doing our best to meet everybody's needs as best as we can. So
absolutely, and I'll come to you, Georgina. I think you make a good point about social media and about Facebook. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. I try and stay off the comment section of my Facebook page for my own well-being. But what I've seen is lots of WhatsApp pages that have been created for people who live on roads. Perhaps they've never spoken to each other before. I know where my parents have lived. They've lived there 15 years. People have never spoken to each other. There's now a WhatsApp group that people are engaging in. And similarly, we've seen some great Facebook pages. Our mayor here in Basildon set one up as well at the start of the pandemic, and I know on a daily basis people are engaging there as well. So Georgina, yes, that kind of sense of community as well, that can really help, can it not, when it comes to people improving their mental health and realizing that there's a place for them to go and share their anxieties, which perhaps are more widely shared than they may even envisage themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's when people are suffering sort of, with their mental health, they don't realize that other people are suffering too. And they struggle to find that help, so if they, like you said, with the WhatsApp groups, if they know there's other people around that have the same issues, or, not necessarily that, but, have, I'm trying to think of the word, but have, a group that they can go and chat to, that they know that, they're not on their own. And whether it be, a big issue or a little issue, it's having someone to talk to. And it's being able to voice that. I've had clients who've turned around and said to me, I'm sure there's more other people that have more of a need than I do, that you could help, quicker than me. And I was like, but that's not the point. Every issue is an issue. If you're struggling with something, then to you, that needs fixing. And so it's good for people to talk, no matter who they talk to, whether it be a friend, whether it be a family member, whether it be, you know, our centres. It's, you know, it's important that people talk.
Absolutely, I think that's right, and we'll come in a moment to talking about the council's campaign on this as well. So as we lead up to Christmas, and thank you to people who are sending your questions in. We will come to those as well, and we'll keep an eye on the live comment section on our YouTube channel as well to see if there are any questions coming in. But Grant, let me come to you, because one of the things that has been a positive has been that we've seen lots of people who have chosen to take up physical activity, perhaps some for the very first time, and others who have chosen to rediscover their local park and to get out and about. So from the council's perspective, how important do you see physical activity as part of helping to support people through the mental health challenges they face?
Well, I think perhaps more important than me, for 6 months we had senior politicians and the chief medical officer coming on our TV every day, telling us the importance of physical activity. There are not many, I guess, gains from a worldwide pandemic, but hearing that message every day, get out, the importance of getting out, feeling the sun, speak and moving, we heard it continuously. And I don't think that was a pandemic message only. I think that's an incredibly important message for ourselves as a species and what we need to be doing. So we definitely saw people cycling, walking, running, jogging, more than we ever did before. As a council, like many councils, we try to do everything we can to make that simpler, make that easier. I'm very lucky that part of my role here at the council was I have the parks and countryside under my service as well. And let me tell you, we've never seen the amount of people using the parks as we did this summer. But what's really interesting is I find myself talking to my teams, and we've not seen a drop off in that way. I know we're in a second lockdown at the moment, but even during that time, people carried on using the parks. We've got much greater buy-in now from when we were not in the lockdown. People wanted to get involved in friends groups and get involved in their green and growing, having a much greater interest in the environment as well. And I think that's really, really helpful. It's healthy to be moving. It's healthy to be part of a community, galvanizing in your local area about things that matter to you. It's helpful. It's very healthy as well to be telling the council about how you think you can improve these spaces and stuff. We welcome it, and we want to work with communities. So physical activity is massively important. Now, part of that is we are working extensively with Sport England at the moment, and we have been funding a number of different parties and helping support them. Motivated Minds only being one of those, and their Happy Hub, we've been helping what we call activate that. They've been looking at the 5 ways of well-being, one of those being physically active, and how we can help the Happy Hub become more active. But we want to be speaking to partners and communities throughout, really, about how we can do that. And I think that's hugely important. One thing I would end on by saying as well is tomorrow we close our mental health fund application process. So Motivated Minds, I'm really pleased to say, although a wonderful organisation, are one of a number of wonderful organisations operating in our borough, and we are fully aware through our work on the community hub that the capacity within the service, or within the sector, I should say, has been stretched. And while they continue to do a great job, it's incumbent on us as a council to be able to support them, to be able to continue to deliver for their communities. So we're focused on that. So if anyone hasn't seen that, it will still be open till tomorrow. We do have a large number of applications though, and we're really, really excited to see what they say and how we can help build the capacity within the sector.
That's absolutely right, Grant. And again, I think it speaks to the kind of way in which we're trying to connect with the communities, that the funding for that mental health fund has come from various different stakeholders who've come together to see that it is such an important issue. And Countryside Properties, we thank them. Mark Noble, the West Ham captain, who's put some funding in, we thank him as well, and so many others. And as you say, we're very keen to make sure that partners in all 5 towns of the borough are supported to be able to get to people that need them. Let me switch the emphasis a little bit here, and Steve, perhaps I'll start with you. Obviously, for people who themselves perhaps are feeling some of the symptoms that your organisation helps with, anxiety, stress, the depression, that they may themselves need to make the first move. They may need to come and self-refer. But what would you say to people who it's perhaps a family member or a friend that they've started to see perhaps some of these symptoms? What should they do? And especially now as we come out over the next few weeks of the second lockdown, albeit in tier 2, with the restrictions that we know will be there, that people will start to see more of each other in this period. But if you're noticing in a friend or a family member some of these symptoms, what should you do? What's your message to those guys?
Yeah, I would encourage them to not forget about the GP, but a GP doesn't need to facilitate a referral into the service. So it could be a very quick telephone call or even access through the website, and you'll be speaking to one of the administrators within minutes. So I would encourage family members to encourage their family members into the service and get them seen as quick as possible. A bit like others as well, the power of groups is not to be sniffed at either. We've seen groups of 15 to 30 people come in for all of the anxiety disorders, depressive symptoms, and sometimes the benefits of the group itself is as powerful as the therapy we deliver. So we've set up groups and we've seen some of those group members go away and form friendship groups of their own post their time with us. So I would very much be encouraging the families to contact us.
Yeah, I suppose that normally about 4:45 on a Saturday afternoon for yourself is an invaluable source of comfort as well. Lynn, same question to you. What if it's different? And fair enough, if it's similar to what Steve has said, what's your advice to a family member or a parent right now who might be looking at a child and thinking they may be presenting with some symptoms? What should they do right now?
I say don't hesitate to pick up the phone and dial 111 option 2, and somebody will be there who will be able to listen to what your concerns are, and perhaps offer you some advice on the phone. Listen to they will listen to what's going on, maybe take a little bit of history, and get a feel for what's needed for that person, and offer you the appropriate advice. I forgot to actually say earlier on that as part of the service, we now have sanctuaries as well that we can refer people onto, which was kind of a new addition which came online in April when we launched the service, and it's part of it's one of the pathways that we can select for a person to attend and to gain help. So because of COVID, initially the services weren't able to offer face-to-face support. So the support was sort of all on electronic devices, either telephone or video link. But gradually as time has gone on, I know in Southend, the sanctuary there is providing face-to-face support for people, and it's for what the sanctuary is able to provide is support that's non-medical. So if there's perhaps somebody might need help to fill in a housing application or a benefits application, or or perhaps they're feeling anxious and just need to spend some time with someone to calm them down, and need someone to listen to them, and just need a bit of time with someone, then that's the kind of service that the sanctuary can provide. And they will also provide like a follow-up service as well, so the appointment, so to speak, doesn't just end when the person's finished. They will follow them up and make sure that they're okay, perhaps the following day, and so on. So that's another sort of new part of the pathway that we can offer. Brilliant.
And Councillor Gordon, you've done a lot of work with young people. Especially at this time of year, it can be difficult for young people, but particularly off the back of this year, and there'll be young people who had exams affected, who will be looking towards exams next year. and asking questions there of themselves and of the way in which that's going to happen. How would you advise young people in your constituency when it comes to dealing with those pressures and anxieties?
I mean, that's somewhat the $1 million question, because I think it's important to say when you're dealing with mental health and mental illness, there is no silver bullet, and that there's not a pill or a therapy that someone can take and have and everything be fixed. So I think it's important to be realistic in that respect, but also for young people who are struggling, there is an equivalent telephone line for young people in Essex. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I know it's there. It's run by North East London Foundation Trust. So reaching out to them, reaching out to your friends and family members. Again, that it might not be difficult to speak to mum. It might be difficult to speak to mum, dad, but it might not be so difficult to reach out to your friend and say, look, I'm struggling at the moment. And I think it's important both for young people and adults to reiterate and underline the message that it's okay to struggle with your mental health. We are not created and designed as perfect human beings, and everyone will struggle with their emotional well-being and mental health at some point in their life, and that's completely okay. The important thing is that you talk about that and you're open about it. We have to remember that stigma still exists when it comes to mental health and well-being. And so just reiterating that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel sad. What you're going to do about that and what the next steps are depend on a whole different range of circumstances. But I just encourage people to reach out and talk. And also specifically for young men as well. Sometimes there's a lot of stigma directed at men when it comes to men expressing their feelings, their thoughts. Men have mental health too, and there's nothing unmanly about reaching out to help and support. For help and support, in fact, I would say it's the epitome of masculinity to actually say, look, I'm struggling at the moment. I need to talk. I need to reach out. So don't suffer in silence, whether you're a young person, whether you're an older person, whether you're someone who's just getting by. Talk about what's going on. Talk about your day. Talk about how you're feeling. It's essential.
I think that's a really powerful point, well made, Andrew, about the need for men in particular, as you say, to feel emboldened to talk about their feelings in that way. Georgina, one of the things that Councillor Gordon just said there was around stigma still exists, and how do you see that from the work that you do in Motivated Minds, and what do you do to help combat that, or to give advice to people so that they recognise that perhaps unintentionally they're kind of labeling stigma that they might not understand that they are doing. How do you deal with that at Motivated Minds?
Okay, well, it is a deal. I mean, people are worried about what other people think of them, and this is why it's hard for them to take that first step and seek help. When you talk to people and you say to them, who have you spoken to about this, and they go, no one. And you say, why have you not reached out and spoken to family members, friends? Oh, but I don't really want them to know how I'm feeling, or I don't want them to judge me. And the thing is, everyone's struggling at the minute, no matter the issue. There's everyone's got something, and it's best to share that and support each other. And the thing is, when people say, maybe I should tell my boss at work, and I go, okay, well, if have that conversation, then they'll know what's going on, and they'll be able to support you that way. And their initial thought is, but they're not going to like it. They're not going to like that I'm struggling. And what if I get fired over it? What if I then become sort of office gossip? And so that's a big deal for some people. And I say to them, it's okay. Like you just said then, it's okay to not be okay, and to seek that help. You know, if your boss is the only person you can go to talk to, then go and talk to them. You know, talk to anybody, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Alfred, let's just focus for a moment on young people and the particular issue that we're seeing with young people in our borough and in the CCG area. What are you guys at the CCG seeing, and what is your action plan for how you're going to deal with this going forward?
So in terms of children and young people, as mentioned earlier, we commission services with North East London Foundation Trust that provide the service. There's a single access in terms of access to the service. One of the bigger issues we've seen is issues with eating disorders, children and people in terms of having problems. And that's one of the things which has been quite a big issue, but also in terms of the emotional and well-being to children and young people by virtue of not being able to access education. We were privileged in terms of commissioning a service with Thurrock and Brentwood Mind called Positive Pathway, and that was in conjunction with Essex County Council Education Access Team. And that was primarily picking on children and young people that were struggling with access to education. And obviously with the pandemic and in terms of obviously not being able to attend education, that has enhanced anxiety in terms of mental health and well-being. We've increased funding in terms of putting an additional person supporting children, young people in terms of providing youth coaching. We've also put in some additional funding. So I think it's helpful to note that apart from the statutory providers, i.e. Vitamind and ePuts that provide the vital statutory provision, we also commission, and the long-term plan from the national perspective is to support the voluntary sector organization because they do quite a lot and they were easy to galvanize and mobilize themselves during the pandemic in terms of being more reactive because there's less bureaucracy in terms of getting on and doing things. We've got Renew Counselling and YPCS locally that provide counselling to children, young people. We've put in additional investments just to ensure, because they were seeing an increase in children and young people contacting them for counselling and support. But also we're working with Kuth, which is an online counselling service as well, that's providing online counselling to children and young people. So there's a lot of opportunities and activities out there. What I'll say is we've just about in the process of creating a directory of service, because I think one of the challenges even for our primary care practitioners is about understanding what services are out there. And primarily more so often there's so many services out there. And I think it's about bringing those together and sort of like contextualizing that so people can signpost to the right place. So in terms of supporting emotional well-being, we're putting additional investment, or we're working with the voluntary sector in terms of providing that enhanced counselling support as well.
That's brilliant. And you've preempted a question that I was going to ask that's coming on our Q&A here about a comprehensive directory of mental health services in Basildon. And what you're saying, Alfred, there is that is in the process of being done. So that is in the process of being done. In terms of prior to the pandemic, we did some notional engagement with colleagues in the community tree in terms of developing. So we developed a Wickford and a Basildon community tree, which we printed, I think it was about 10,000, and we did distribute. I know I did send a couple of thousand to Anya to sort of like send that through public health. And in terms of, but what we want to do is contextually, and I know myself and Grant has been engaging with other mental health voluntary sector provider, and we want to bring them together to sort of like try and understand the different offers and develop that opportunity, because I think that would be helpful not so only for individuals that use service, but also for our statutory providers that need to understand where they can signpost people and what other services are out there that can help and support the local population in Basildon. Brilliant. And Karen is asking about the community tree that you've mentioned there. Is that a publicly available document? Are people able to access that? So
it is online, yes. I believe there's a link. I'm happy to share that link again, but yes, it is online and that's been refreshed.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, look, time is flying when we're having fun. We've reached the final section, the final 15 minutes, and I want to ask you all a quiz question at the end, so be prepared for that. But this this next question that I will put to you, Grant, to kick us off. The council has launched a Christmas campaign. Are you okay? Talk us through it, the objectives, the aims, what we want to get out of it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, so obviously after such a trying year and much of what we've been learning and listening and working with our communities was led to tonight. We wanted to set up a campaign with a bit of a difference this year. So the Are You OK campaign is specifically in relation to being able to support people with their mental health and for them to be able to support those of their loved ones at this most important time of many for many of us of the year. We're really lucky to be working with colleagues on this call in Motivated Minds and who have already got this wonderful outreach into our community. The aim of that is we will be giving messages and giving support through all of our different kind of media forums, both at the council and with Motivated Minds and whoever other partners want to participate in helping us with do that, to give people support mechanism and how they can I guess techniques is the word I should use, for how they can support their own mental health and those around them. Now, one of the things that we're particularly looking to do here is some befriending calls. So if people have identified loved ones of those that need it, we've been running a befriending service at the council throughout the year for those that are most in need. But we know that particularly at Christmas, it could ramp up, and that real additional support from Motivated Minds is really important. So I know that many members of the council, Councillor Callaghan, are being trained by Motivated Minds to be befrienders during this time, and we'll be making calls. But we're also looking to just arm people with the right information and the confidence to also just check in with your neighbours, make sure they're okay. We were always very clear during the COVID pandemic that all of the work that all of the partners on the community hub did and continue to do was fantastic. But the work happening in communities, those that were just checking in with their neighbours, those that were just knocking, saying, "I'm going to the shops, do you need anything?" Those that were saying to people how they could refer, that they were at the end of the phone, that they were on WhatsApp, that made an incredible impact. And we want to, this Christmas, to really reiterate that. Put a Christmas card through the door of a neighbour saying, "Are you okay? And here's my number if you need to speak to." And if you're really worried, then referring them through to Motivated Minds and making sure that we're getting that proper support.
Brilliant. And I think you're absolutely right. And obviously this time of year, the council tries to pull together a kind of Christmas campaign, but what better gift really this year could you give than your time, especially when so many people have found more of it. And I know from my own daily life, not spending 4 hours commuting a day has given me, but who knew that the world ended at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you didn't have to sit on the train for 2 hours coming home. And thank you, Councillor Gordon. I think you've shared the community tree link in the chat, so thank you for that. Lisa, you obviously are working with us on the Are You OK campaign. From your perspective at Motivated Minds, what are you looking to get out of it, and how do you want the public to engage with this?
We're really excited about this project because it really mirrors what we do and what we believe in at Motivated Minds. So one of the things that Grant touched on earlier was when he said about getting active, and he mentioned the ways to well-being. So getting active is one of the ways to well-being, but the other 4 ways to well-being, which are very, they're nationally recognised, is to give, is to connect, it's to learn, and it's mindful. So together with being active, those 5 things are kind of the key to being well. So what this project does for both the recipient and the caller is it gives them the opportunity to connect. So and connect meaningfully. So what's really nice is if you're the person giving the call, you're reaching out and you're connecting with somebody, but it gives you such a buzz to be able to pick somebody else's spirits up. It equally will pick our spirits up. So what we're saying to people is, even if you are feeling okay, you could be that person that gives a gift to someone else, but as a result of that, you too will feel the benefits. Obviously, we are going to be giving some people some training around this, around how they can engage in meaningful conversation, a little bit of mental health awareness so that people feel confident in case they come across someone that is feeling anxious, and empowering people to know how to support them. So that obviously people are going to get to learn something. We're also, off the back of the calls, we're also offering letters. So we're kind of bringing back that tradition of writing a handwritten letter, because we don't get anything nice through the post nowadays, really. So a nice letter is a great opportunity for people. And what we're doing for that is we're asking people to be really mindful, to think about how they can communicate with people, what they can talk about. Because we're obviously conscious that you need to talk about things that are positive. So obviously that gives us the opportunity, again, as a caller or someone who writes a letter, to think mindfully about our activities, what we enjoy, what we do. So it's a real self-reflective tool. And obviously, like you said, giving your time to somebody is a massive boost. So we're expecting to both see the callers have a boost in their well-being and the recipients at the same time. So it's quite a nice combination, really. And what we're hoping is that just get into this mindset of reaching out to people, writing letters to people, picking up the phone call to people. It's a skill we've kind of lost through recent years, I think, because of social media and having smartphones. We do sit on our phones kind of messaging people rather than picking up the phone. We'll scroll through Facebook or Instagram and we feel that we know everything that people are doing, but we haven't actually had a conversation with them. So we want to bring back those real old-fashioned principles, get people calling, get people writing letters, but also empowering people to know what to say, how to deal with people, how to reach out. And we just want to bring about a bit of community spirit, really. We just want to see, just bring some Christmas spirit, bring a little bit of hope to people's days again. So we're actually really excited. We're getting a good response to this, and we're very much looking forward to hearing from people. So let's just pair people up, let's get talking, let's get through Christmas together.
Brilliant. And I think you're right to say it's a double whammy, isn't it? It's not just the person receiving the call, but also the person making the call as well. And I'm very much looking forward to taking the befriending course next week. I'm doing that as well. I know some other counsellors are. And that tradition of written letters is very interesting. We as counsellors still get them, mostly casework. So, but absolutely, it is always nice to read a handwritten letter. It feels more personal, doesn't it? So I agree, absolutely. Right, quick fire. This is what I was going to ask all of you. So I'm going to come round and we're going to go round twice. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go round and I'm going to ask you in one sentence for the best piece of advice that you can give a young person to support their mental health during the next few weeks as we lead up to Christmas, with the context of the last year and everything else. So what is the best piece of advice you can give to a young person in the next few weeks? One sentence. And someone's going to draw the short straw and have to go first here. And it would be only right that it's Councillor Gordon.
Well, I think, as I said earlier, my piece, but I think in a sentence is that it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to talk about how you're feeling, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Georgina.
Talk to anybody, talk to mum, talk to dad, brothers, sisters, just make your feelings known.
Lynn?
It's difficult to come up with something new, but I think for me it's about, you might think you're the only person who feels like you do, but often you're not. So it's good to share how you're feeling. It won't be as bad as you think it might be. To share, it will help you, and it will be interesting for you to know that other people might actually feel like you are feeling too.
Steve?
I was going to say communicate with your grandparents in whichever way, shape or form you can. Get in touch with them. That's the gift that keeps on giving.
Brilliant. Lisa?
I think for me, I'd be saying to young people, to do what makes them happy. I think one of the things that we see a lot with young people, because they're very, conscious of social media, is that they're looking at what other people are doing all the time and what they should be doing. I think if you ban the word should from your vocabulary and do what you want to do, so do something that makes you happy, and chase that, and because that feeling, that happiness feeling, it'll keep you going.
Brilliant. Alf?
I was going to say, always try and be yourself, be open to talking to people. I think talking is the most important thing. And I always realize that you're not alone. And if anything you're going through, there are other people going through the same thing, but just make an opportunity to talk to people to get help as and when you need it.
Brilliant. And Grant?
Some advice I was given when I was at school, and I still think it's today: look after your mates, and they'll look after you. I think that the importance of friendships is really important, and yeah.
That's an officer, not a politician speaking. Absolutely. Very much agree with that. Right, now that was very, very good. Now, the final question that I'm going to ask, I'm going to do the reverse order now. So, Grant, you're going to be first. What are you going to do to look after your mental health in the coming weeks as we lead up to Christmas? Grant?
So, yeah, I'm very clear what I need to do here. I need to... This is the thing we don't talk to your politician boss about how hard you work, isn't it? But I need to take a break away from the screen more often, and I need to commit to doing that, even if it's walking around the block of a lunch break. That will make that's an achievable thing that I should be doing, and I will do it.
Very good. Alf?
I'm going to try and make time for myself and my loved ones and not feel guilty about not being at work every godsend hour.
Very good. Lisa?
I think one of the things I've been struggling with really is not being able to do things that I want to do this year, like traditions and things that I would normally do. So to combat that, what I'm going to try and do is focus on what I can do, and what I can do is I can make other people happy. I can get involved in campaigns like the Are You OK campaign, and if I focus all my energy on those things that I can do, it will help me to forget about the things that I'm missing. So.
Brilliant. Steve?
I'm going to move. I've had days in lockdown where I've done less than 100 steps on my iPhone, and my iPhone is telling me that. So I need to get out and move more for sure.
Absolutely. Lynn?
I'm going to take a little bit of time out from work over the Christmas period, and do some of the things that I enjoy doing, and spend some time with my family in the home.
Very good. Very good. Georgina?
I think it's to take time for me and to spend more time with the family. I think at the moment it's impossible to find that time. So it's just to, just stop and just take some time for myself.
Brilliant. Councillor Gordon?
I'm going to make a concerted effort to be a tiny little bit less cynical, and inject a bit of hope and optimism into my life. I'm sure my colleagues will appreciate that greatly.
Very good. Very good. I'm going to make a conscious effort to not sit in this chair from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight, most days, sitting on Zoom calls, and also over the kind of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day period, not to say the word COVID, because I'm sick to death of saying the word COVID, as I'm sure everybody else is. Look, thank you all for your contributions tonight. I think hopefully you've enjoyed the discussion, and for the people who have been tuning in and helping, there is support there, and that is the message that you should take away from this, that the community groups, the CCG, the statutory services and the council is here for you, no matter how tough you might find things in the coming weeks and months ahead, but we are here for you. We want you to engage. If you can be part of the Are You OK campaign, then please do take us up on that. It will be a great campaign this Christmas. You will get something out of it, as well as has been said already. But from all of us, thank you for tuning in this evening, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone, bye.
Thank
you.
Thank you.